lie. So we create a lie, right? And I'm basically, the bottom of page 29, I'm just going through exactly what I just said, but now visually rather than verbally. Okay, so this lie is the condition, the foundation for the system of oppression. Right? The lie becomes the foundation for the system of oppression. The next thing that we see, if we look here, it says 1A. 1A refers to 1A above it. Orchestrators of the system must willfully construct this lie. Right? This lie doesn't happen out of thin air, as Nietzsche says. It's not invented out of the ethos. It's willfully designed. Designed by whom? Designed by its orchestrators, right? So orchestrators construct this lie, and this lie is used as the foundation to frame a system of oppression. Okay? Next thing we recognize is the more creative the lie is, the better the chance we have of control. Right? So what we want to do is we want to make sure that this lie is a creative lie. And I'll get to that in a second. Now, within the system, we see that we have a norm. And we recognize what this norm is, right? This is what I said was the example might be Hysiolog. Right? Physiological normalcy. You could put sacerdotal supremacy to be technical, right? I don't know if anybody's ever used that phrase, but the supremacy of the priestly class. Physiological normalcy is the fact that there's a certain genotypic trait that's best. Blonde hair, blue eyes, tall, angular build is the best trait. All sort of variations from that are progressively worse, right? You create the system of oppression, and what ends up happening is you immediately construct a hierarchy. Insofar as you posit a norm, that norm creates a system wherein individuals are demarcated better and worse, and it requires a sense of improvement, right? As we saw before, that you have to improve yourself. So we have people here who are attempting to improve themselves, and people here who are also attempting to improve themselves, right? So that the system of improvement this attempt to ascribe to, in this example, conform to the physiological normalcy of the governing paradigm. So, for example, what does that mean? People with jet black hair deliberately dyeing their hair blonde in order to get better social status is an example, right? It's not that they do it just because they like the color, but they willfully, intentfully do it because they recognize that the system privileges those with blonde hair, and I then have better advantage if I dye my hair blonde. Therefore, I intentfully dye my hair blonde to get better advantage. That individual is deliberately seeking to improve him or herself in order to acclimate or assimilate with the system. Insofar as I do that, though, I go against what is biological. My biology is that my hair is not blonde. Right? The example that I gave in a previous series had to do with women, and the idea that for black women, having natural hair, having dreadlocks, having an afro, wearing braids to work is, the cornrows is informal. Like if you went to a business meeting and you were sitting across the table from a very beautiful lawyer in a suit and her hair was cornrowed, despite all of that, you would be like, that's ghetto. You're coming to work with cornrows in your hair? That's how our hair grows, right? So what happens is, and on and on. We know what happens, right? So that's the system. The thing is, individuals outside of the system, right? Outside of the system are going to want to challenge. They're going to want to challenge this lie. Well, isn't it the case that, it just doesn't make sense to talk about the afterlife? Like, how could you know about an afterlife? Because my knowledge could only be of this life, because when I'm dead, then I don't have knowledge, and if I do, I at least don't know that I do, so how can we make sense of that? Or, if you're talking about physiological normalcy, how is it that having different color hair makes you smarter? I don't understand that. Why is it that different color hair makes you more attractive? Isn't that socially constructed? Couldn't that change with time, right? If society in the next 25 years decides that that's not what's favorable, wouldn't that change with time? So what happens is our individuals who are not within the system of oppression challenge the fundamental lie and thus look to deconstruct or break, dismantle the system of oppression. Orchestrators use this lie, however, to influence those individuals, right, to constantly try and condition in best terms, the moderates. You know, they could be moderates or they could be straight opponents, right? They try to use their influence to say, well, look at what the doctors say. Look what I know you're challenging us, but the doctors say this, and the lawyers say that, and people of high status say this, and people much smarter than both of us say that, so it has to be the case, and da-da-da. They try to influence those who either don't really care too much or those who are directly opposing their narrative, right? Because what's being challenged is the narrative, right? You don't attack the system directly. It doesn't exist. There are no walls to the system, right? It's not a building. It's not a location. The system is a product of a narrative. So what you attack is the story, and you look for holes in the story. That's very important, right? When I say, and when you hear theorists talk about the system of oppression or the structure of oppression, it's not a physical location. It has no geographic sort of latitude and longitudinal. There is no directionality to this. It's the structure as a consequence of ascribing to a narrative. So to change the system, you change the narrative. It's just that simple, but it's just that difficult. Okay. And then this influence, right, this system of influence has to be creative, and it has to be resilient. It is the combination of creativity and resilience that reinforces the influence to try and appease the moderates or to foil the opponent, right? So important here is insofar as I posit this norm, insofar as I posit the norm, the quick version is, and it's a good thing to have in your mind, right? I have a lie. The lie creates a system of oppression, right? It creates this framework of oppression. I posit a norm, and insofar as I posit a norm, everything goes towards that norm. Everything goes upward, right? I want to be like that norm. And insofar as I make an ascription, insofar as I willfully dye my hair blonde in order to advance up the social status, I deny what it is that I am. I reject the biological for the norm. What ends up happening, though, is that you're going to have individuals outside of the system, right? Individuals outside of the system who are going to challenge the lie. That doesn't make sense. Why would you do that? This lie is going to be reinforced by the creativity and the resilience of those in power, primarily intelligentsia, academia, to influence those who don't have that knowledge. And thus the system repeats infinitely. It just goes on forever and ever and ever. So, last point before I wrap up the section of the discussion, very, very important, and hopefully not too complicated to sort of internalize. The system, hopefully the image works, because I don't think of the words, I just think of this image, and then I remember it, right? The system is based on a lie. Who constructed the lie? The orchestrators of the lie. They stand outside of the system. They're outside of the system. The system is fundamentally built on positing an unattainable norm. that immediately creates demarcations in men and women, in humanity, better and worse types of people. That immediately creates a system of improvement, an attempt to try and be more like the norm. There will be those outside who want to free their brothers and sisters in the system, and what happens is they challenge the lie. Insofar as they challenge the lie, however, there has to be an attempt to influence that threat with justification. So there's an appeal to the intelligentsia. We need a reason to justify this system. Make up one. Da, 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 da. They then take that deliverable, if you will, that product, and they give it to the opponent. They give it to the moderates to justify why they're doing what they're doing. In many cases, it's persuasive enough to pacify a lot of the opposition. A small minority will still have opposition, and then I use my influence as a means of just sheer power. And then I just kill them. I just destroy the opposition. If you're not going to listen to what I say based on sort of pseudoscience, then I'm stronger than you are, and I'm going to use my guns to kill you and your people. Simple. That's an extreme case. That's where genocide comes in, but that's an extreme case. What ends up happening is the orchestrators of the system have to remain two things. They have to be creative enough, right? You have to have the idea that's creative enough to be able to legitimize to the population why wearing glasses is a sign of, as in the Cambodian genocide, why wearing glasses is a sign of elitism, and why they are against sort of us agrarian rural people, why they're a threat, and why wearing glasses is a threat, right? As hokey as it is, you got to legitimize your system. And you also have to recognize that once people start to poke holes in the system that attack the narrative, you can't just flee from the system. You are wedded to the system until its destruction. And that's usually what ends up happening, is that the orchestrators of the system fall with the system. Right? And this is where huge revolutions in the political sense, or paradigm shifts in the intellectual sense, transform populations, right? So it's super powerful stuff. So with that, hopefully this makes more sense. I want to thank you for taking the time to watch my videos. I'm Dr. Jason J. Campbell. Have a good day.